Hey everyone, it's Jules and welcome to this episode of All Things Iceland, in which I'm going to be busting 5 myths about Iceland that honestly it needs to stop because it's inaccurate information, and I feel like over and over people keep finding articles about like certain things and then regurgitating the same wrong information. So this video is all about that. But before I get into the video, I have an awesome surprise. So I just opened up the All Things Iceland merch shop, in which you can get really cool things like an All Things Iceland cup that actually says Allt sem Íslenskt on one side, which is All Things Iceland on one side in English, and the other side in Icelandic, which is pretty cool. And then I have Christmas or holiday related items, beautiful printed bags, reusable bags that you can use at the grocery store or your computer, whatever, as well as wall art that is gorgeous. It is legitimately like my fave in terms of some of these pieces. And the colors, especially on the stretch canvas and like the reusable canvas tote bags, they just pop so much. They're so vibrant and beautiful, and they're great gifts, whether it's for yourself or a loved one. So you can give the gift of Iceland this holiday season. Definitely make sure you check it out. Link is in the description box. But let's get into busting these 5 myths. And we'll start off with the first one that will probably come as a surprise to many people. And that has to do with these little houses that people see, and they often say that they're elf houses. And in reality, that is not true. So if you're driving along the Icelandic countryside, or like walking somewhere and you see like a little version of a house, that is not an elf house. So elves, historically, in Iceland anyway, they are the same size as humans, but they live in like the hills and the cliffs. They basically live in like a parallel world that we can't see. And if they want to show themselves to us, then they can, but we cannot see them. And yet, you know, they're the same size, maybe even taller, who knows. And those little houses though are a replica of farmhouses in Iceland, and I believe there was a game that kids would play called Boo, in which they would utilize as houses, you know? So elves might even be offended by the fact that this is being spread around, that they live in these tiny houses that can hardly fit dolls. Well, and if you see that around the internet, which it is all over the place, just know that not an elf house. And to add to this, that makes it even more confusing for people, is that the movie Eurovision Song Contest, the story of Fire Saga with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams, they also make it seem as if those little houses are for elves. So a lot of misinformation, but now you know. Number 2 is pretty funny, but I guess also can be considered a little bit insulting in terms of it being a myth about Icelanders that is not true. And it has to do with the fact that people assume, or there's this story that Icelanders developed an app in order to know if like they were going to date somebody, whether or not that person was or is their close relative, like a first cousin or something. And what they're talking about is called Icelandic, which is the book of the Icelanders. That is in essence the translation. And it is an app, like technology, a website in essence, in which you can go, Icelanders can go, and anybody with a kynjatala, so if you're living in the country and it's the same as like your social security number, you can go and utilize this site. And in essence, the reason why it was created is not for that specific purpose, for like the young people to like make sure they're not too closely related, even though you can use it for that, but it's just to be able to trace back and to kind of like add in information for families, so they can trace all the way back to medieval times, settlement times, about their families, which is pretty amazing when you think about it, of like the span of what, more than 1,000 years in which people can know their lineage and who they're related to, Vikings, settlers, whatever. So just know that that was not the reason why it was created. While that is a benefit, the original reasoning behind it has more to do with history and preservation of that, as well as family trees. The third myth revolves around the fact that Iceland is the most peaceful country in the world, which it has been named that many years in a row. But people assume that because it's been labeled the most peaceful country in the world, that no crime happens here, like no murders, no like things that you might encounter in your own home country. And in reality, a lot of things happen in Iceland that are similar, on a smaller scale, of course, that happen in other places in the world, like domestic violence, like sexual assault, petty crimes, people getting murdered for vengeance, or like underground gangs, all these things, people using drugs, things of that nature. So there are definitely crimes that happen in Iceland, and more than likely, you know, there's something going on daily that the most of us are not aware of. And I try my best to keep up with the news. And occasionally, actually on Instagram, if you follow me over there, it's All Things Iceland, I like to do a Icelandic news roundup every once in a while, just kind of give people the inside scoop there about some of the stuff that's happening. So the positive, the not so positive, and just kind of fascinating. But yeah, there's definitely crime, there's definitely discrimination that happens, things of that nature. And it's not a perfect place. It is an amazing country for sure. And there's awesome people that live here just as well as there are people who are not so great. So just kind of keep that in mind, because it will help to manage your expectations. The way that the media spins Iceland most of the time is in a very positive direction. So more than likely you wouldn't hear this unless it's from someone who just wants to kind of share what different angles of Iceland look like. Number 4 is back to elves, and that is, a long time ago, it happened that an article came out that Icelanders, or the majority of Icelanders, believe in elves. Now, this is such an interesting one, because even when I did an interview with the president, which I highly recommend, and I'm talking about the current president of Iceland, Guðni Thiahau Jóhannesson. Check that out, link in the description box. It was an awesome interview, and he's a lovely person. So when I interviewed him, he even talked about the fact that this was a myth that he kind of wished was busted. At the same time, he would not outrightly say that elves do not exist. It was kind of this middle ground of being like, you know, it's possible, or I can't say that it's not the case, right? And there are people here in Iceland for sure who would definitely be like, no, they don't exist, just stop, you know? And then there are those, so there's like the extremes. There are those who would really believe in it, and there are those who like, honestly would just outrightly say no. And then you have a decent amount of people in the middle. I would say it's not fair though, based off of this poll from like many years ago of Icelanders, to base the fact that people, the majority of people, at least in the country, believe in them and believe in elves. But like I said, there is this kind of fun way of dancing around answering the question, and yet at the same time, still being like, no, not all Icelanders believe in elves. So that's probably a little bit confusing, but such is life. Number 5 has to do with gender equality in Iceland. And what's amazing is that Iceland does rank highest in terms of all countries regarding gender equality, and yet gender equality has not been reached fully in the country. That's the part that's really difficult, because it's like, you're just right there, or seemingly just right there. But culture, bias, all of these things still come into play in terms of why it's still not equal. And throughout the years, there have been walkouts in terms of women walking off of work at the time in which they would no longer get paid the same as a man. So let's just say if you were working from 9 to 5 and a guy was getting the full amount for that 9 to 5, but for a woman it would be a little bit less. She would leave at the time that that equates to, so maybe 3 o'clock, and go to a protest, and you know, of course, be talking about how much we want to have this equal. And I've been actually to some of these protests over the years, and that was like really fascinating and amazing to take part in that. And I know that people are working really hard in the public sector. This is something where it seems that Iceland has really gotten a hold on. But when it comes to private companies and, you know, just areas in which maybe the control is a little bit harder, it makes it so that there are still people who find that a woman or a man, or at least people who identify as these, doing the same job, some men are still getting paid more, irregardless of experience or the fact that they should both be getting paid the same. So that's just kind of an FYI that it has not been completely reached. Hopefully in the near future that will change fingers crossed. And I say fingers crossed, but honestly, people are working on it. So I do believe this is something that's gonna happen, and hopefully other countries follow suit. I know many of them are Nordic countries and other places. Definitely let me know in the comment section if there were any of the myths that surprised you that I busted today. I feel like the elf house one is definitely gonna be one that kind of is surprising to people, but that's just my opinion. So let me know for sure. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to check out the All Things Iceland merchandise shop that I mentioned earlier, as well as share this video with someone that you think really would find it helpful to get the truth behind some of these things being told about Iceland that are simply not true. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.